Hello, people of the internet and podcast world. Welcome to episode 1 of the MindFit Movement Podcast. I am your host, Ant Marino, and today I have Ben Borg on the show. Ben Borg is from Married to My Macros. Married to My Macros is a nutrition coaching company. I personally do all my nutrition coaching through Married to My Macros. So Ben, first and foremost, is a good mate of mine. And then secondly, he is my nutrition coach. Today on the show, Ben shares a bit of his story, a bit about his background, how Married to My Macros was born and how it evolved over the last 3 years. And then he dives into some topics about, the struggle, the biggest struggles that people have when they're starting out on their health journey or trying to get their health back on track. He then gives small steps that you can implement straight away to start getting your health back on track. He also touches on fad diets and basically how they do not work and they are unsustainable and they are only good for short periods of time, but not really that good. He also touches on having a positive relationship with food and mindset around training and nutrition. It's a really, really good show, guys. I reckon you guys are going to love it. Ben is very, very knowledgeable, very well spoken, and there is just a really, really good amount of knowledge bombs around nutrition and positive mindset with food in this episode. Also, team, the MindFit Movement Podcast is sponsored by another company that I'm getting off the ground. It's called MindFit Adventures. MindFit Adventures is a group adventure holiday company that incorporates fitness, mindfulness, and self-development experiences throughout its trips. So basically what a trip looks like is groups of like-minded people will head over to, say, a destination like Bali. We're all going to stay at the same accommodation, and then we're going to do daily functional fitness workouts, different mindfulness workshops, mindfulness techniques, yoga, meditation, and self-development workshops, and also active adventures. So like hiking a volcano to watch a wicked sunrise, visiting picturesque waterfalls, going on cultural experiences, and all that really, really good fun stuff. If you want to check out MindFit Adventures, you can head over to mindfitadventures.com. All the details are on there. You can also check out MindFit Adventures on Facebook and Instagram. That is at MindFit Adventures. Also, if you want to check out my Instagram, it's at AntMarino1. So yeah, guys, basically that's it. Also, just wanted to add in there, this is the first time that I'm doing this, and I'm quite nervous. Even sitting down with Ben, pretty nervous, even though he's like a good mate of mine. It's just the whole thing about interviewing somebody. I've never done it before. And yeah, it's like, scared of failing, scared of getting it wrong, all that bullshit. But, it's just taking that first step, putting myself out there and hopefully getting uncomfortable, growing, learning and evolving. And yeah, so I trip a lot of my words. I stumble a bit of my words. I say a lot of ums, which is kind of annoying, but I'm sure as the podcast grows and I do this more and more, it's going to get better. So if you guys are happy to listen to a few ums and trips and stumbles here and there, keep listening to the episode. It's a really great episode. So yeah, thank you very much for stopping by, guys, and we'll see you on the next one. Alrighty, so we've got the man, the myth, the big old Bency Borg.
The legend.
In the studio. So the studio currently is his mum's dining table. No, so seriously, guys, welcome back to the podcast. Today we have Ben Borg from Married to My Macros. Married to My Macros is a nutrition coaching company. Ben is firstly, a good mate of mine. We met in Vancouver, Canada, when I was living over there. It was like love at first sight. I always tell people.
The footy shorts.
Yeah. He came walking in through the gym door, and never seen a picture of him. I just saw this bloke walk in wearing footy shorts, and I was like, "Oh, footy shorts, mate." He was like, "Yeah, mate." And then we hugged, held hands, and then we've been inseparable since. But apart from that, apart from being a really good mate, he's also my nutrition coach. And we've been working together for probably the last 7 months. And basically, I don't know if I can say that you've got me in the best shape of my life, because I was the one that actually put the food in my mouth. But you guided me.
Yeah.
You guided me very, very well into getting me into the best shape of my life.
Thank you, mate.
Yeah, absolutely, mate. So, Ben, tell us a bit about your background, a bit about your story, and how you've gotten to where you are now.
Yeah. Okay, cool. Thanks for having me on.
Absolutely.
My story and my background. I think my story is pretty typical for most. Kind of went down, finished high school. Expectation of finishing high school was go to uni, get a degree. And it definitely, in our family, it was more get a degree in that whole something that's useful more than like something that potentially you enjoy or that you're passionate about.
Kind of a typical, like Australian kind of mentality, right?
Yeah.
Old school mentality.
Definitely old school mentality. I think particularly kind of our European background probably came into that as well. Education was always, really important. And it wasn't so much whether or not you enjoyed it, but it was important to have. So you get the education so you could get the job, so you could get the mortgage, et cetera, et cetera. Which I guess given the circumstances that the family kind of, or my father in particular, grew up in, and that was important, right? And that was held in high esteem. So I went to Monash after I finished at St. Kevin's for 6 weeks before I dropped out.
Yeah.
I don't know if I wasn't ready for university. I think I really didn't know what I wanted to do. And basically the rule in our house was you're either going to school or you're working.
Right.
So I tried a few different things and then had someone tell me, "Oh, you're good at talking. Why don't you try real estate?" Yeah. So I ended up working in real estate for 2 years. And actually,
really? I didn't know that.
Yeah. I think working in sales was a really good eye-opener and probably my first real experience with dealing with people and learning how to manage my own expectations or expectations of those that I was with. Definitely a lesson in the dangers of potentially over-promising and under-delivering. But just in general, some really good exposure and experience of how to deal with people in general. And then decided 2 years after that I was going to go back to university in order to bolster my real estate career. Ended up going back to Deakin, and originally I was going to do property and real estate, but then decided to do commerce because I just thought I'll get sort of a more broader degree to fall back on just in case. Got probably 2 years in and was like, well, what am I doing? Like back here again, like didn't love it. But this time just thought, well, I'm this deep now, I may as well finish. Yeah. So it came to second year and it was time to start choosing majors. And had no idea, had no real pull or real direction with what I wanted to do. I kind of hated every kind of option the same. So in the end, jumped on Seek and sort of looked at my different options and where the most openings were. That was accounting. So I ended up majoring in accounting and corporations law. Finished that, got the job, worked at a couple of the banks, and then ended up getting my first real job in finance at Accenture. Yeah. Which was another really good lesson in working in teams and definitely working in the accounting finance industry. Picked up some really good skills there in terms of Microsoft Excel and business management and understanding concepts of cash flow and contingency and all that sort of stuff. But again, just didn't love it. Started doing my CA. So just had this perpetual, knew I didn't like what I was doing, but just further down the path. Got to a point where I was like, I need to get away for a bit, have a little bit of a break. Went to Bali with 2 mates for a week, and that's where I met Kat. And kind of had a conversation.
So Kat is your now wife?
Kat's my now wife.
beautiful bride. You guys got married about a month ago?
Yeah, about a month ago already. Jeez, feels like a lifetime. Every day with Kat is like a lifetime.
Lucky she can't hear us.
Yeah, she can hear us.
She can actually
She's
hear us.
always listening. She knows I'm kidding. Yeah, so I met Kat and I guess just got into one of those conversations that you tend to have, not necessarily with someone that you know too well, and that you can just be abruptly upfront with and honest with. And I guess I never necessarily thought that I'd kind of see Kat again after that Bali experience. And we just had an amazing conversation about, how I was kind of going down this path that I thought I should be going down, that I didn't really want to go down, and had this, massive love and passion for health and fitness, and, how I'd always wanted to do that, but never really was considered like the real job or the real career. And so along the way, I've been working as a PT, like all through university and that sort of stuff. And basically our conversation sort of steered to how disappointed we'd become in that industry and sort of what it had become. And then we had this argument where Kat was like, "Oh, we should do something about it." And I was like, "That's never going to happen. Like that's, that's just you dreaming, blah, blah, blah."
Yeah.
And we ended up staying in touch, and within 6 months, we'd sort of decided to turn it into a little bit of a business. And Kat had a friend of hers who was like, "Hey, I've seen you like transform yourself and pay more attention. I know you're much more knowledgeable at nutrition than I am. I'll give you like $50 to write me a meal plan," or something off the cuff like that. And she told me, I was like, "Oh, no shit." Because I was just doing them for free, right? For mates. And then out of that, someone else came and said, "Oh, I heard you're doing so-and-so's nutrition. Could you do mine as well?" And I think at that point I said to Kat as a joke, "Hey, we should start a business." Within 6 months from that, I'd moved to Canada. And from that point, MTMM had gone for me full time. And then here we are 3 years later.
3 years down the track.
3 years down the track, we're now a team of 5 coming into 6. We've got a hub in Vancouver and Melbourne, and a little client community in Hong Kong, which is emerging as well. And it's living the dream basically for us. Never really thought it was possible. And I remember the first time the business kind of was made official, and we kind of had our first like month cash flow positive. It was like, holy shit, it's happening. It's for real.
Yeah.
And so the journey's been pretty cool for us. And the business has been somewhat symbolic of our relationship as well. And so kind of look back just over the last 3 years at how the business has grown, and from where we started to where we are now. And even though it looks very different, the message has always been consistent. And I think that's very, very metaphorical in terms of Kat and myself and our relationship, is that we've definitely changed and grown and evolved the way that we do things, the way that we practice, but even the way that we live our lives over the last 3 to 4 years.
Yeah.
But that goal and that messaging has been consistent the whole way through. And I think that's essentially the most fundamental strength of our relationship, is that have very similar core beliefs and values, and that we're pushing towards the same thing.
Yeah.
Definitely have different strategies of getting there, and we both bring very different things to the business, to the relationship, to each other's lives. But I think we've been fortunate enough that they're quite complementary of each other rather than conflicting. Because I think Kat's very type A. She's very organized, very to the point, and I'm a bit more creative, let's say. And I have no doubt that my creativity and sometimes inability to maintain focus on a lot of minute issues drives her as crazy as sometimes her very regimented, overly organized personality drives me. But I think one without the other would get stuck. So I think we've been fortunate enough that we kind of have both sides of the coin.
Yeah. I think you guys do complement each other quite well. Yeah. You guys can sort of ground each other, and then, like if one person's off on a bit of a tangent, you can bring them back down and get them on the straight and narrow kind of thing. Yeah. And vice versa. Yeah.
So I think that's, definitely been probably one of the biggest reasons we've been able to get MTMM to where we are. If you're just all ideas and no action, you don't get anywhere. But equally, if you get too caught in the weeds and you lose sight of the big picture and what you're moving towards, I think that's equally as detrimental. So we've been, very fortunate, and we're very grateful for that. And anyone out there, do the eat, pray, love thing, go to Bali, you never know what's
Yeah, right. So what is MTMM? So Married to My Macros, what is it?
So the actual business itself came out of, I guess, our own struggle with our health, our nutrition. Both of us pretty into health and fitness. And I guess both of us quite aware of all the traps that kind of lay within the industry. And when I mean traps, I just mean like all the general advice that's out there that's not necessarily helpful. And so what we really wanted the business to stand for was to be this kind of beacon within the industry where we were happy to have the hard conversations surrounding, nutrition and health, but also that the information that we were providing the public space was, well-founded, well-researched, correct, constructive,
Right.
as opposed to all the snake oil stuff that has made its way into the industry. And so that's kind of what we stand for. What we do day to day is we take individuals like yourself who are looking to better their health, their performance, learn a little bit more about nutrition, and kind of save them the 8 to 10 years that we went through trying to figure it all out. Right.
Yeah.
So that is essentially what we do one-on-one coaching and support.
Yeah.
In which we work very individualized with each client that we work with in order to ascertain the best way for them to get to where they want to go.
Yeah. And that's what I really liked about coming on with you guys is it's not just here's a meal plan, see you later. Like you go through, like what macros are. You teach people about protein, carbohydrate, fat, and even to the extent where you're telling them when to eat it because of how it's going to affect their energy levels and their performance. For me, it's a performance-related thing.
Yeah.
So that's what I really, really liked about that.
The thing for us is we have that real preference to want to work over longer term with our clients because, for the most part, what we know that works better than anything else is consistency over long periods of time. But not only that, I mean, you can write someone the best plan, but if you don't write it in a manner that is able to be executed by them in their context, in their circumstance, it helps them overcome their specific hurdles, it's not worth the paper that it's written on, right? So, when you work with someone over a period of 6 to 12 to 18 months, you can't help but start to develop quite a good relationship and friendship with those individuals. And when you know exactly what that person is going through, what challenges they've got coming up, what demands their family situation plays on them, or their work, or their career, or their travel schedule, their social obligations, you're in a much better position as a coach to be able to advise, support, and guide them through those times.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think that's kind of, we really do try to put that personal element into our personalized macro approach, right? Yeah. So, I mean, it's all well and good for me to say, here's your profile.
Sorry about that.
Good one, buddy.
That's my daily appreciation alarm going off.
Well, what a time.
Yeah.
But
I appreciate you, mate.
Thank you, mate. I appreciate you too. But if you don't understand the context that someone is trying to execute within, then you're really limited. And if it was easy as just getting the macros and following the plan, then there wouldn't be all the issues we see within the community when it comes to health and in particular diet. And we can go even deeper into things like body image and stuff like that as well. That's an epidemic at the moment, right?
Yeah, totally.
Self-confidence, so.
Yeah, I think it's a massive thing. Like even myself, like I'm in the best shape of my life, but I can't help but look in the mirror in the morning when I take my clothes off before I jump in the shower. It's like a habit that I've gotten into. I'm like, oh shit, I look a little bit fluffy around here. What's going on? Like, am I not training hard enough, or or should I not have had that chocolate on the weekend? But it's something that I've sort of had to like teach myself to not do.
Yeah.
And also with your help, I've been educated that we're going to look different. Sometimes week to week. Depending on like your training volume, or if you went out on the weekend or whatever like that.
Yeah.
So that education for me has become just like to help me more with my like having a calmer mind and not stressing about myself and my self-image and basically breeding a lot more confidence in myself.
Yeah, there's a lot of that, unfortunately, within the community where we put so much self-worth or self-value on the number on the scale or what we think we should look like. And it really comes down to, for the most part, unfortunately, is one of the exercises we have our clients do when they first start is go through their Instagram. And it's like, if there's things on your Instagram that you're comparing yourself to and they're making you feel pretty shit about where you're at, you need to get rid of those, right? Because if they're not inspiring you, if they're not helping you, then they're hindering you. And what you're consuming in terms of your media is just as important as what you're consuming in terms of your food, right?
Yeah.
Now, you're in the best shape, you're the strongest, you're the fittest you've ever been. But if you compare yourself to Matt Fraser, we're both as unfit as anything, right?
It makes you feel shit.
Right, exactly right. But if having Matt Fraser in your Instagram shows you what's capable when you know, are able to give 100% and dedicate yourself towards achieving a goal, then fantastic. But you need to keep in mind, Fraser's goals are not your goals, right? My goals are not your goals.
Yeah.
So at the moment, is it worth beating yourself up because you're not the leanest you could ever be? No, right? And that's a big conversation that we have a lot as well, is why is the goal for most people weight loss, right? And what is the attraction they have with a specific number being on the scale? And it's a hard conversation to have with a lot of people when you need to understand that being lean is not necessarily being healthier, right? Or improving your performance, you know? Unless we're talking about you specifically wanting to prepare for a physique show, then getting you down to as low as body fat as possible is not an appropriate goal for us right now.
Yeah. And just want to share like a bit of my experience on my journey with Married to My Macros. I did start with Kat, you know, a few years ago for 3 months, and my goals were always like to put on a bit of lean muscle and lose a bit of weight. And like I got injured and then I kind of threw it all out the window because I was not, you know, like I wasn't being able to be as active, and I thought, oh, you know, stuff it, don't worry about it. So then I quit, and then I came on with Ben, as I said, 7 months ago. And when like my main goal was to just get strong and to fuel my workouts and all that. I didn't put on a bit of lean muscle, which I think was going to happen anyway, but I didn't want to focus on the weight loss.
Yeah.
And I got 2 months in and I was kind of pissed that I hadn't lost any weight, even though that wasn't my goal. I was kind of like, fuck this, you know, like I should be losing weight, you know, because I'm like eating really well, blah, 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 blah. And then I was like, all right, don't give up. Don't fucking give up. Just keep going, keep sticking to it, you know, stay consistent. And, you know, like I was getting stronger, I was getting fitter. I felt more fueled in my workouts, which is what I wanted. They were my goals, right? And then that next month that came around, I noticed a change in my body.
Yeah. And
then the month after that, I noticed another change in my body. And I was getting leaner, right? But I was still feeling strong. I was also lighter, so I was moving better in the gym. And what I'm trying to get at is the consistency. Like you can't just do 2 months, 3 months, and then be like, why the fuck's this not working, right? From my point of view and from my experience is that you got to stay consistent past that hurdle, past that 3 months, and then you'll start seeing the rewards, even the ones that you didn't think were going to, like you were focusing on.
Yeah.
And for me, that was my getting trim and losing weight because I wasn't really focusing on that.
Yeah. So let's call a spade there and understand that like fat loss and weight loss are two completely different things, right? And so I think like part of what you said as well is, you know, while my goals were performance-based and et cetera, but if that was really true, then you wouldn't be upset about the scale, right? So there's an element of needing to be honest with yourself with what your goals are and examining why, okay? Now, it's okay to have aesthetic goals. It's okay to want to have your abs out when you're on the beach for summer, right? That's perfectly fine. I give everyone permission to have that as a goal, but given the goal, you also have to understand that there's going to be a level of compliance that's going to be required to achieve those goals, right? Now, given the time of year, the personal circumstance, et cetera, there might be times of the year when you can actually have 10 weeks where you really can knuckle down and you're really happy to be 95% compliant to program.
Yeah.
Right. You're happy to forego social obligations and get-togethers and drinks out with the boys because right now obtaining your goal is more important to you.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
But I think if you're always endeavoring to do that and you're not getting the other side of the coin, that again, you're only going to have these short-lived terms of success and then you're going to revert back afterwards.
Yeah.
Okay. And there's no point doing something if you can't do it long-term and sustainably.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's, I guess, like where kind of balance comes into it, right?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
I mean, you do hear a lot of people, like I'm single and so I'm on Bumble, you know, trying to meet some new people, and there's like people saying on their profiles, I'm into health and fitness and keeping active, but I also know what balance is and like to, you know, go out and have a drink. And it's kind of, I think everybody's perception to balance is a little bit different because I don't want to sound like an asshole here, but if you look at their photos, like it doesn't actually look like they're into health and fitness, right? You know, they're carrying a little bit of extra weight, and whether that's because they've just started on their journey or whatever, I'm not sure. But I feel like people can use the word balance as a bit of a cop-out sometimes to actually obtaining their goals.
Yeah. I mean, balance is, I mean, look, for some people, balance is the goal, right? And it's incredibly hard to look at a snapshot of someone and try to assess what their whole story is to that point, right? I mean, you have no idea. Like when we first started MTMM, I really thought the majority of what we were going to be doing and providing was the meal plan. I thought that was probably going to be 95% of the work.
Yeah.
That, while it's an incredibly important component of what we do, most of what we do is provide support emotionally for our clients as well. Because there's so much that goes into diet and exercise and self-worth that goes deeper than a macro profile. Right. So for some people, tracking and weighing and logging can actually be quite unhealthy, right? Given their personality, given their history, given their circumstances, that kind of over-obsessiveness can lead to more disordered eating than trying to learn to eat intuitively and understand hunger signals and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So definitely, which is why we do everything on a very individual basis. But I think what's important is to, you know, when you're setting yourself a goal for your health and fitness, you need to set yourself a realistic goal, and you need to understand all the things that goal encompasses. You know, if your goal is to get stronger and put on lean mass, you need to be okay with the fact that the scale is probably going to go up, right? Now, if your goal is to really lean out and to be as shredded as you can for summer, you need to be okay that part of that goal is a choice to forego those social situations, to stop drinking, to probably get to bed earlier, right? So I think that when people tend to say balance, depending on the individual, you know, if some people are going from 0 training to 3 days training a week and they're starting to cook 1 or 2 meals at their own week, that's a huge shift given their sliding scale of where they were to where they're going. So that is more balanced. But for someone like yourself or myself, you know, they might argue that, well, your pendulum's gone too far the other way, right?
True.
So again, it's a very individualized assessment of where you're at.
Yeah,
right?
That's a good perspective, especially because like we all view things in different ways, and I have known to be wrong before and put a perspective on things. Really? Yeah. But I think that's it's a good way to learn and grow is to put your perspective out there, and you know, we've got that relationship where we can kind of go back and forth with different perspectives, and you can call me out on something, and I think that's good.
Even on that, it depends even on your like basic understanding of what's right and wrong, right? And in a circumstance like this, like your choice on how you choose to live your lifestyle is not for me to say whether that's right or wrong. That's you, and that's what you want to do.
Yeah.
But if you come to me and say, hey, I understand that you guys know more about nutrition and performance than I do, and I've decided that like this is a goal that I've set for myself and I'd really appreciate some guidance, then that's a completely different conversation.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. All right, cool. So let's touch on like if somebody comes to you that wants to get in, like get their health back on track. What do you think is the most common thing people struggle with when it comes to their health?
I think you hit the nail on the head before when you said long-term consistency.
Yeah.
Without a doubt. I mean, you look at some of the crazy bullshit out there in terms of fad dieting and stuff like that. You can eat nothing for a week, right? You can eat nothing but soup for 4 weeks. You can eat nothing but meat or nothing but vegetables for a short period of time. But how sustainable is that? Not just 4, 6, 8 months afterwards, but 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, right? If you're really looking to make some fundamental changes, you need to change your lifestyle, not just what you're choosing to put in your mouth, right? So I guess the biggest piece of advice is if you're deciding to make some big changes into what you're eating and what you're doing, make sure those changes are sustainable over a long period. And in my opinion, starting from zero and going to hero is not necessarily going to be indicative of like long-term success.
Yeah.
Right. If you're looking for really basic points now of things that you can do to start by drinking more water, start by eating more vegetables, start by eating less processed food, right? They might seem like small scale things. And at the start, when a lot of people decide to make a big change, they're fucking all in or nothing and motivation's real high. But after 2 weeks of eating nothing but broccoli soup, like how committed really are you going to be, right? So just start with the more basic stuff, get that down pat. And then once you're in those good habits, just build on them slowly.
Right. Yeah. So start small.
And build.
Yeah. Start small and build. Yeah.
Drink more water, get to bed earlier, start there. And if you can't do that, like if that's a challenge, then how well do you think you're going to go with those more drastic changes?
Yeah. So start small and build gradually, kind of like how you and Kat built your relationship and built the business.
Kind of like how you would build on a deadlift.
Yeah. You
start with an empty bar. You start with a PVC pipe.
Yeah.
Get it right, and then move to the bar, and then add some weight, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah.
Right.
I guess that's a good mindset, and we can implement that kind of what's the word? Attitude towards our nutrition, right? Or getting our health back in check. And just to bring up a story about the fad diet kind of thing. So I was getting a massage the other day and some cupping and stuff, and the therapist was telling me about her mum and how she's just gone on this. It's like either Jenny Craig or a Weight Watchers diet, right? And she was telling me that she gets to have a smoothie in the morning, one kind of bar, and she gets to eat a salad, right? And
sounds miserable.
That's what I said. I was like, what? How can she do that? Like, I'd be starving. And she's like, oh, she's losing weight and she's loving it and blah, blah, blah. And like, I didn't want to comment too much because I'm not an expert in this field, but I was kind of like, well, what's going to happen in 2 weeks when like she gets fucking sick of eating the salad and the smoothie and the protein bar, and also her weight stops dropping and it stays at a thing? Is that what would usually happen? Like you would see big gains at the start because you're at a high caloric deficit?
Right. So most of what gives these fad diets like their momentum and their kind of fuel to keep going on is a general misunderstanding or non-existent understanding of the basics of nutrition, right? And again, that is something that we're trying to really promote with our seminars and get in as many and have these conversations with people that, when you look to remove a food group or you look to remove food in general, you're really playing with something like your energy balance and your calories in versus your calories out. Now, sometimes, in its simplest terms, if you're in a caloric deficit, you should be losing weight, right? If you're in a caloric surplus, you should be gaining weight.
Right.
In its simplest terms, the body is so adaptive that sometimes if you just keep cutting calories in order to lose weight, you're eventually going to run out of calories to cut. And what do you do there, right? So there is a lot to be said for understanding the basics. But if you go from, again, if you're not doing the simple things right to start with, then like that is going to be your downfall at the end of the day.
Yeah, right. So what can happen So I heard something like that. If you stop, like if you're giving yourself caloric deficit, and then basically you stop gaining weight, you stop losing weight, but then like you just stay at the one weight and you're still eating the same amount. Is that because the body's quite smart and it goes into survival mode?
Well, it's metabolic adaptation, right? Like the body doesn't want to change, so it's always going to try to slow things down or make things easier in order to burn less calories because it's getting less fuel in, right? So without getting too technical, I don't really know what direction you want to take the podcast, but like we've seen definitely in our practice that reverse dieting has been an incredible tool in order to stimulate more fat loss. Particularly when we're getting people who are coming to us already only eating 900 or 1,000 calories a day. Actually, by increasing the amount they're eating and giving them more energy so they can train harder is actually a better way to facilitate the body composition that they're after rather than just giving them zero food, right?
Okay.
So the more energy you can get and the healthier you are, the better you're going to perform. And the better you perform by way of the most amount of stress and intensity that you can train with, the more you're going to force physical adaptation from the body. All right. But telling someone that you're going to spend the next 6 months bringing them back up to a maintenance level so that you can get them comfortable and help them sit there and then take them into a deficit is much less attractive to following a meal replacement plan for 6 weeks and losing 10 pounds.
Yeah.
Right.
And do you think that's what sells these fad diets?
100%.
Is the attractiveness of them?
Why wouldn't you, like everything at the moment in today's society has to be like instantaneous gratification.
Yeah.
Why would you do something in 6 months that this thing's telling you can do in 4 weeks? Right. If the goal is to lose 10 pounds and you can do it sooner rather than later. It's hard to sell the opposite.
Yeah.
Right. It's hard to sell consistency. It's not sexy. It's a grind.
Yeah.
You said it yourself. Fuck, 2 months and you only start to see results in month 3. Yeah. Right. And that's with a pretty decent, compliance rate. It is a grind. It is day in, day out. When you go to the gym and you have a really good session, even if it's your first session back, you're lying there, you're in a puddle of sweat, the endorphins are pumping, you hear your heartbeat like in your head. You're lying around, you're high-fiving everyone. You're like, fuck yeah, I fucking took a real good step today. That was a really good move forward, progression towards my goals. When you nail your macros, there's no celebration. There's no like confetti. There's no angels start singing. It's just like, okay. And you have to do it again the next day and the next day and the next day. Yeah. Right. And that lack of instant gratification is generally what puts people off. Okay. It takes 2 weeks to start to feel the difference. It takes 4 to 6 weeks to start to see a difference. It takes 3 months to 4 months for other people to start to notice. If I can get you to that point, it's almost, much smoother sailing from that 4, 5, 6 month mark onwards. Because if we're still going at 6 months, we've made big lifestyle and behavioral adaptation that's going to start to carry us through.
Yeah. So there's definitely a big sort of mindset around it that's going to help you. And that's where you guys come in, right?
Keep you on track. Keep you accountable.
Keep you accountable. That's
that thing, right? We've been there. Like our personal stories, like we've been where you are. We've struggled through your struggles. We understand like your concerns and your fears as well, right? And it's like based on all those experiences and obviously like nutrition certifications, like this is like let us help save you the next 4 or 5 years of like guesswork. Yeah. Right.
And I think that's like where any good coach can kind of that's a valuable coach is somebody that has lived those experiences.
Yeah, and that's not just, with M2 and nutrition, but you look at any kind of business coach or business mentor, right? Well, the biggest lessons we can learn from the elders within our community or like any kind of leaders in the industry is like, look at the mistakes they've made and don't repeat them, right?
Yeah, that's what my dad kind of was trying to teach me when I was a young 16-year-old fella starting my apprenticeship about saving money and all that kind of stuff. And he was just basically like, I'm open and honest with you about all this stuff, like my failures and all that, because I want you to learn from my mistakes. I don't want you to make the same mistakes that I made.
Yeah.
But,
I had lessons to learn.
And I was kind of, not ready to listen to him. And I was like, I want to learn them for myself. So I went and did that,
And I'm sure you'll have the same conversation with Anne Marino Jr.
Exactly, mate. Yeah. That's right. All righty. So I'm going to ask a couple of finisher questions. We have here. Well, you kind of already answered this. What would be the first thing you would suggest to do to somebody that wants to get their health under control? And you basically said start with the small implementations, start drinking more water, stop eating processed foods, etc., like that.
Get to bed earlier.
Get to bed earlier.
Yep.
Make sure sleep, because sleep's a big part, hey?
Yep.
And that's probably a conversation for another day. So the second question, what has been the most influential book that you've read and why?
Jeez, that's tough to pick just one. My goal for this year was to read one book a month. And I think having done that, I think each book, and this is, again, like I want all my clients reading something, right? Because I think, you said before how when we have a conversation, it's interesting to see like different perspectives. And I think that being open to the possibility that other people may see or observe the world a little differently to ourselves is good for us to keep in mind. And I definitely feel that just because we're not at school or we're not currently studying doesn't mean that we ever stop learning. And so I think that a lot of, there are some really good books out there that will start me off down a different path to then continue to read in that direction.
Right.
And I tend to find that a lot of what I'm reading and taking on and adapting in my lifestyle is also beneficial for others that I'm working with as well. Which one's been the number one? I guess it would depend on the direction that you're looking to go and looking to learn. I think Man's Search for Meaning by Viktor Frankl, which is probably was the first book I read in this challenge.
Yeah.
Has definitely was given me the most perspective, I think. So it's written by this doctor who survived the Holocaust, was in a lot of the concentration camps, and basically gives perspective to, even within those kind of situations, the quest for trying to understand what we're doing here, what's our purpose, understanding suffering within the world and happiness within the world. It's a really good look at the human condition, right? And I think it's important to keep in mind that, we always think about the grass being greener and doing other things and how much, how much happiness there is always seemingly out of reach. But this book kind of demonstrates that, that whatever you do is going to be suffering to some degree, and learning how to enjoy that suffering as much as you can, or take pride in the work and stuff that you're doing. Even when it was them working in labor camps, they still had elements of their work that they, were looking forward to and deriving some meaning from. So I think if they can find meaning in that, I think that kind of gives us all a bit of a kick in the ass.
So it's like a perspective.
Yeah.
Perspective.
You
right?
love that book. Read that book.
Right.
Man's Search for Meaning. But then when I was 15, I read Arnold Schwarzenegger's Bodybuilding Bible, and that probably put me on this path as well. So I guess read a lot and read widely would be my tip.
That's okay. Alrighty. This is probably a little bit deeper.
Than the concentration camps in the Second World War.
Well, maybe not that deep, but a little bit deeper on a personal level. Now, I've never asked this question to anybody before, so I don't know how it's going to go down.
Question without warning.
Yeah. If you could pick one value that you would live by, what would be that value and why?
I think gratitude. I think there's a lot to be said for striving to help others and the satisfaction you can get from doing that. I think that's definitely something that we've tried to encompass with what we do. And I think very much the more you look for things within, this world, the more you see it. And I think the more grateful you are for realizing that you're in the position that you're in and being able to do things that help other people, it just opens up more opportunities for you rather than less. And I think people always feel like they'll wait till they reach a certain point before they can afford to start giving back, whether that be like financial or non-financial or time or whatever it is. But I think one thing that we found is some of the best opportunities that we've had made available to us was as a business trying to get involved in delivering, whether it be free seminars or working with kids and stuff like that, purely just to try to help. And then there's always been like good windfall on the other side. So I think, definitely personally very grateful for the position that, Kat and I find ourselves in, for the community that we've been able to build and for the work that we're able to do day to day.
Yeah.
And so I think it's an awesome opportunity and position that we're in to think that we can help to give back, to give others the same.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. And I'm a big advocate for gratitude as well. Yeah. And
what's yours, Ant?
Mine is so I was,
question without warning.
Yeah, I was like, I was trying to like toss up between the two, but I think I'm going to go with compassion, and so just having compassion for other people and their experiences, their life experiences, and there's all different types of people in this world, and sometimes I feel like we don't always understand, or we don't get other people. But I think like if you can have compassion for them, then they like, you're not directly giving them compassion. You're not walking and go, hey, I'm giving you compassion, but like
compassion.
Yeah. But if you could, it would probably make them feel better,
Yeah.
But also it makes you feel a lot better. So growing up in a kind of a small town mentality, a lot of people, would be racist, homophobic, even pay out on people for like wearing certain types of clothes, like, oh, look at this bloke, he looks like a clown, and it's like I'm guilty of it too, and that's because that's what I knew. And looking back on it, I feel horrible. And now I try and live my life with a lot more compassion for other people, because like I feel like if we were more compassionate to other people, there would be more love and less war. If you know what I mean.
I think you always fear what you don't know or understand, right? And I think it only takes something like meeting someone who's gay and having a chat with them to understand that it's like, well, that's just their sexual orientation. That's not like their personality or their like value or anything else, right?
Yeah.
And once you work to meet people from all walks of life and actually understand them as a person, it's such a minor detail.
Exactly right. And I actually had this thought this morning. I don't know where I was, but something just triggered my. Oh, actually, I saw a post from this chick called Meg Root. She's a CrossFitter, and she is partners with. Sorry, is it Meg Root or Meredith Root? Yeah, Meredith and Alex Parker. Yeah, and she had some rainbows on her shoes, and then in the caption there was like the rainbow thing, right? So they're obviously lesbians. And it just makes me feel so good, like to know that they're just sharing themselves and who they are, and it's just good to see that their love, right? And I thought about it in a male perspective as well, and like two males being together, and I'm just like, yeah, just fucking bring it on, like you do you, just love each other, and
how hard is it?
And other people, just let them love each other too.
What difference does it make to you?
Exactly. What do you care if they're if they're together?
I agree.
So yeah. But anyway, on that note, I'll get you to plug here. Where can people find you? Where's the best place where people can find yourself? And also, am Married to My Macros.
Yeah, so I guess all the usual places. Married to My Macros is on Instagram, Facebook. Email, website, marriedtomymacros.com.
Yeah.
Instagram is Married to My Macros. My Instagram handle, Ben Borg, MTMM. If anyone wants more information or wants to reach out, info@marriedtomymacros.com. Love to hear from you. Any feedback, any questions. It's all there, all the main pages.
Beautiful, mate. Well, on that note, it's a wrap. Thanks for coming into the studio.
Yeah. Cheers, mate.
I'm actually at his parents' house, as we said before. All right, guys. Hope you enjoyed this episode. If you liked it, share it around. You know the deal. Give it a 5-star review. All that good stuff. All right, guys. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you on the next one.